Hello, and welcome back to yet another college football video. We are back. It is 30 degrees outside, so not as cold as last time, but hey, we are back with yet another NFL video, and today we're going to be talking about every NFL team's quarterback situation. We're going to go through all 32 teams, and I'm going to break it into categories and talk about which teams have a franchise QB, which teams need to move on, and such and such. I like talking about this thing or these types of things. I like thinking about teams' futures and like what they're going to do and the moves they're going to make. I just like thinking ahead like that. So, thank you for watching. Let's hop straight into it. And as you can see right here, I'm going to divide it into four categories. Those being just drafted, basically all rookies and extremely young QBs, where like there's no way a team moves off of those guys this year. The franchise QBs, there's a lot of them actually. And this does not, listen, a franchise QB, for the purpose of this video, they don't even have to be that good. Quite frankly, all this really means is if a team has paid you an absurd amount of money and they can't afford to move off of you, that's what franchise QB means in this scenario. Now, it technically is possible. I mean, you saw what the Broncos did with the Russell Wilson contract. They took on the most dead cap in NFL history. So it is possible for a team to just willingly cripple themselves just to get rid of a quarterback. But the Broncos have to be the outlier there. I cannot see teams just willingly taking on hundreds of millions of dollars of dead cap like the Broncos did. So, for the purpose of this video, if a QB got the bag and they got that massive extension, they are a franchise QB for the purpose of this video. Depends on this year. Those are for the guys. There's about 7 or 8 of them where we'll get there when we get there. You'll see. And the need to draft, there are a couple teams where it's already too late for some of them, but it's over. They need to move on, whether it's in the draft this year or through a free agent. So let's get right into it. Starting off with the players who were just drafted, we got Caleb Williams in Chicago, obviously number one overall pick. He has been up and down this year. When he was playing at his best, he looked very good and very promising. But he's also had games where he's looked terrible. I don't know how I'd grade his season so far. Like I said, it's just been too inconsistent for me. And I've seen the flashes though. I'm not a doubter of Caleb Williams. He needs time up, obviously. Bo Nix in Denver, possibly the most impressive rookie of this season. Now I know Jayden Daniels has been amazing, but Bo Nix, you have to understand, being the most disrespected, the most slept on QB coming into the draft, maybe besides like JJ McCarthy, but really nobody was giving Bo Nix a chance. When he got drafted number 12 overall, there were a lot of critics. I loved the pick, but I was very concerned with the talent around him coming into this season. I did not think they had enough. I still don't think he has enough weapons around him, but he's making it work. You got guys like Devon Vele, Cortland Sutton having a great year. Sean Payton, credit where credit is due. He has made the transition very easy for Bo Nix, and Bo Nix is playing some of the best football right now for any quarterback in the league. Anthony Richardson on the Colts, he is not a rookie, but I just think it would be so foolish, so unbelievably foolish for the Colts to move on from him. Over the last 9 years, the Colts have had 9 different passing leaders. The Colts have not had the same quarterback lead the team in passing yards for 9 straight seasons. That needs to change. The Colts have to put it into the cycle and commit to a quarterback. That guy is Anthony Richardson. They need to give him time. He has not played enough yet. And he's won a fair amount of games that he started. So he has not been healthy enough. He has not played enough. Give him at least another year. The Patriots at number 3, we got Drake May. They've looked like a completely different team since Drake May's taken over. The offense just looks better. It looks more explosive. The young receivers are getting more opportunities now. So he has changed life in the couple games he's been starting for the Patriots. It looks like a good pick so far, but obviously we need to see what he does when they give him a better offensive line to play behind. And maybe next year we can actually see them, start winning a couple games and maybe, sneaking into the playoffs. And then finally, Jayden Daniels, he probably is the front runner at this point for Rookie of the Year. He has played incredible at times. He looks like an NFL vet already. The full package in terms of a runner and a thrower with the football. He is not perfect by any means. He still has a long ways to go. In terms of his accuracy and things like that. But I don't think anybody is doubting Jayden Daniels at this point in time. I think I misspelled his name right there also, but whatever. Now let's get into the franchise QBs. These teams have a 0.00% chance of drafting a quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT, the greatest player I've ever seen in terms of what he does in the playoffs, three Super Bowls already. Josh Allen, dominant, dominant player for the Bills, perennial winner. It doesn't matter the talent around him. He is going to get you 10 plus wins into the playoffs and most likely win a playoff game every year. And Lamar Jackson is on pace for his third MVP, his second unanimous MVP, his second straight MVP. Lamar Jackson is the biggest superstar, I would say, in the league right now, besides Mahomes. He is a generational talent. These are the three faces of quarterbacks in the league, in my opinion. Then you go to guys like Joe Burrow. When he's healthy, his talent is undeniable. A ridiculously accurate throw of the football, doesn't make that many mistakes. I mean, it's like every time he's healthy. The Bengals offense is electric. The problem with the Bengals is that they have no defense. And even though they have the sack leader, a triple crown winner at receiver, and or leader, I should say, and Joe Burrow healthy at quarterback playing amazing, they still can't win games. The Bengals have to fire their head coach and do some soul searching, but that's not because Joe Burrow is not amazing. The Chargers at Justin Herbert, maybe they finally have the right coach in town. They're finally starting to make use of his talent a little bit. They already gave him the extension. Joe Burrow got his extension. All these guys have got massive extensions already. Justin Herbert, talent is undeniable. Now it's looking like he finally is starting to get the pieces around him, even though he still has a way too young receiving core. He doesn't even have a Pro Bowl level receiver yet. You got good young guys like, McConkey and Quentin Johnston, but I think he is only going to continue to get better over time as they give him more weapons. Jalen Hurts, pretty disrespected in terms of a franchise QB, does not get the credit that I think he deserves, but he is winning way over, 67% of his games. He is a consistent winner. He was that in college. He's that in the NFL now. He just looks like a good fit for the Eagles. Multiple different coordinators now. He's still winning games. They look like a dark horse really to make it to the Super Bowl this year. They are my pick to win the Super Bowl, and that's because Jalen Hurts is playing some really good football right now. Next up, we got the Texans and CJ Stroud. He's having a sophomore slump. It's weird. Um, don't really know how to explain it. I think he's getting sacked more than he was last year. The offensive line has been terrible, but you have a superstar running back in Joe Mixon. Nico Collins is back healthy now. Maybe it's just because it's like he's not had a consistent group of the same receivers, but he's had good receivers out there. It's weird to explain why CJ has taken a step back. Maybe he's just overthinking things. I'm not really sure. But listen, it would take a monumental collapse for the Texans to even think of moving off of CJ Stroud. He won them a playoff game his rookie year. He is set as the Texans franchise QB. Jordan Love, similar situation. He is not playing nearly as all three of these guys really are not playing nearly to the level that they were last year. Jordan Love has thrown a pick in every single game this year, but that doesn't matter because they gave him the bag this offseason. So, I mean, he can throw a pick every game the rest of his life if he wanted to. He is the Packers quarterback for the next couple of years. And, I mean, you could say deservingly so. He played really well last year, obviously won them a playoff game against all odds. And, he's their guy. There's nothing you can do. Brock Purdy with the Niners, an amazing record. He is a proven winner, but obviously with McCaffrey not playing most this year, Ayuk being bad, then getting hurt, Debo missing time. It's been an injury riddled season for the Niners offense, and Brock Purdy is now having the worst year of his career, but it does not matter. Brock Purdy will probably break the record for a contract this offseason. And listen, just based off his rookie season and what he did last season, he probably deserves it, but there will be a lot. I'm a Seahawks fan. I have all the reason in the world to hate Brock Purdy. It is undeniable how great he was his first two seasons. This season, he's taken a step back. The Niners got to pay him. Like, what are you going to do if you're the Niners if you don't pay Brock Purdy? They have nothing. Like it's just they have to. So he is their franchise guy. Now we're getting to the more, if well, Dak Prescott for the Cowboys here. Listen, I do not think Dak is a top 10 quarterback. I don't really think you can win a Super Bowl with Dak as your quarterback. I just think he makes too many mistakes when it matters the most. But that does not matter. That is completely irrelevant. The Cowboys just paid him an obscene amount of money. His season is now over again. It's like the second time in the last 4 years where he suffered a season ending injury. He's on the other side of 30. It's not really looking good in terms of his injury history now, but there's nothing they can do. They have no options at quarterback. That, oh my gosh, The reason I don't listen to the mainstream sports set, it is so fucking stupid. They want the Cowboys to draft Shedeur Sanders and bring in Deion Sanders as the head coach. I don't even want to talk about that shit. It's so stupid. But listen, there is nothing that the Cowboys can do. They cannot cut Dak Prescott. I do not care. Unless Jerry Jones dies, Dak Prescott will be the quarterback for the Cowboys for the foreseeable future. Baker with the Buccaneers. He played very well last year, and he's playing even better this year. He was playing exceptionally well the first month of the season, but unfortunately, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both went down with injuries. Chris Godwin's obviously a devastating, gruesome injury, compound fracture, I think, in his ankle. He's done for the year. Mike Evans, I think, will be back if he's not back already. But yeah, Baker, he started to play not as well, obviously. When you lose the two most important weapons on your offense in the same game, it's obviously going to take a toll on you. But Baker, in spite of that, he's played very well for the Buccaneers in the season and a half that he's been with them. He earned that contract last offseason, and they're getting him for a steal right now. He's playing way above that $33 million per year mark right now. And shout out to Baker. He is probably going to earn a very massive extension in next offseason, like not this one, but this upcoming offseason. And he's deserved that. He's played very well for the Buccaneers. Jared Goff with the Lions. I mean, he has just been incredible. I mean, he's been to three Pro Bowls in his career, almost certainly going to be his fourth this year. He's only 30 years old. He fits their offensive system perfectly. Now, Ben Johnson is probably going to leave and become like the highest paid first year head coach ever this offseason. Like Ben Johnson is probably the most sought after coaching candidate that I've ever seen. So he's gone. He should be at least, but you know, Jared Goff, he just has so much talent around him. Even when Ben Johnson leaves, it's not like when Ben Johnson leaves, Jared Goff's going to become less talented. Ben Johnson's not taking Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams with him. He's still going to have a great offensive line, a great run game, great receivers, great tight end. Like, I really don't think that once Ben Johnson leaves, it's like they're going to change their whole philosophy once he leaves. Like, the play calling will be different, but they're going to have the same personnel and the same play style. So I really don't see a dip in Jared Goff's play coming anytime soon. I think he could go down, certainly, as the second best quarterback in Lions history and probably the first quarterback to ever win the Lions a Super Bowl. I mean, when you think about it, he is not old. He just signed a massive extension recently, I think this offseason, so he has at least 4 more years with them. I would be shocked if Jared Goff does not win a Super Bowl in Detroit. That's all I'll say. I honestly think it's more likely that he'll win multiple than him not winning any. Then we got Trevor Lawrence. Now, listen, Trevor Lawrence, did he earn this massive contract extension he got? Absolutely not. He really has accomplished nothing. He won a playoff game against the Chargers team that was trying to lose. He threw like 4 picks in the game. The best moment of his career was that playoff win against the Chargers. In that game, he threw like 4 fucking picks. But the record speaks for itself. They have not been good since getting him. They've had like one solid season. I think they had a winning record last year, but they still missed the playoffs. The only solace that the Jaguars fans have is that they've still looked terrible without him as well as with him. So it's not like he's making them worse, but he is not the solution. He's not going to save this franchise, but they paid him, so he's your guy, I guess. They're about to go into another rebuild, fire their head coach and GM most likely, and we'll see how they look coming out the other side of that. Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. They obviously paid him this offseason. The thing with Kirk Cousins is, has he looked as good as the Falcons fans were probably hoping for? I don't think so. But here's the thing. A miracle would have to take place for them not to win the NFC South. So they're going to make the playoffs for the first time in a while. They're going to have a home playoff game. That's a big accomplishment in and of itself for a first-year head coach, first-year QB. And even though he's not playing amazing, he's still a massive upgrade from what they've had the last few years. Um, so I think if you're a Falcons fan, you have to be satisfied with this. The real question is how long is he going to be the starter, right? I think the plan certainly is that he is the starter for the remainder of this season, the playoffs, and the entirety of next season. Unless unforeseen circumstances take place where he just falls off a cliff or he suffers a major injury, I do not see a scenario where Michael Penix comes in and plays meaningful snaps the next season and a half. Now, starting in 2026, I think the plan would probably be you would hope, I think, transition to Michael Penix at that point since Kirk would be like 38 years old. But if Kirk, it's a win-win situation for the Falcons because if Kirk is good enough to be the starter, that means you're probably a perennial playoff team and winning playoff games. If he's not good enough to be the starter, well, then that means Michael Penix is good enough to take over. And, they have a foolproof plan to get good quarterback play for the next several years. So the Falcons, all that to say, they will not be drafting a quarterback. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, he's actually done a lot for himself. He's only had 1 year of his career, I think, where he's had a winning record, and he needed this year. The Cardinals are a very underrated sleeper team this year, winning in spite of not having a really good roster. And, Kyler Murray needed that. He had a very bad, what's the word? Like, it's just a bad rap in the league. Like, he was not well respected by just people around the league, like fans around the league. And he is playing well. The Cardinals are winning the NFC West as it stands right now. I don't think they'll win the NFC West, but they deserve a lot of credit. The first half or so of the season, they have looked really good. They've exceeded expectations, and Kyler is playing well. Um, is he worth his contract? I don't think so. I just have to see more from him. It's just I have not seen a complete season from him, and I've never seen him play well in the playoffs when he only made it one time. So still has a lot to or a long ways to go to live up to the number one overall pick, expectations, but he is doing a lot for himself this season, I think. Now we get into the next category. This category is players and teams where it all just depends on this year how things go. Let's start off with my Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith. I'd say it's about a 15% chance that the Seahawks move on from Geno. Well, I'd say it's a 5% chance that the Seahawks just get rid of Geno and a 15% chance that they draft a quarterback this year. Geno has been painfully mid for the Seahawks. And the record shows that, right? He is so inconsistent. One game, he looks like a top five quarterback. He's been a back to back Pro Bowler. The next game, he literally loses us the game. You never know what you're going to get out Geno in any given game, and that hurts. However, before I even think about moving on from Geno Smith, we have to get a better offensive line. Because if we draft a quarterback, they're going to have the same problems and have to deal with the same BS that Geno is dealing with, and that's having the worst offensive line in football. So I do not blame Geno at all. I think he has done more than enough. He has played above and beyond what anybody thought he would over these last 3 or 4 years. But listen, even if the Seahawks are looking to move on, like even if they want to move on, what are the options? You could go and sign whoever the Steelers let go in free agency, or you could probably draft Jalen Milroe because there's no way I think the Seahawks have the opportunity to draft a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. So do you draft a Jalen Milroe in the middle of the first round, or do you go bring in a young guy like Justin Fields or something? It's just I don't think there's a viable option right now. The Seahawks have much, much bigger needs on this team than quarterback. So I do not think the Seahawks are moving on from Geno. The Steelers now. We have seen Justin Fields start 6 games. He played not so great, but the Steelers were winning. We've seen Russell Wilson start 5 games. He has looked much better than Fields, and the Steelers' offense as a whole has looked better. At this point in time, I think it is more likely that the Steelers move on with Russell Wilson. What type of a contract would he get is very interesting because he's still getting all this money from the Broncos. Do I think he would give the Steelers like a massive hometown discount? Not a hometown. Like, do I think he'd give the Steelers a massive discount? I don't think so. Is he going to get a 30, 40, $50 million a year contract? I don't think so. I could see like a 2 year, $60 million contract this offseason for Russ. I think that'd be good for him. I don't think he would be upset with that because listen, he's pushing 40. Well, he's not pushing 40, but he's on the downhill in his career, but he's playing well, and I think he wants one more big payday. And I think he'll get that from the Steelers. Justin Fields, there are some Steelers fans that are talking about, well, we're going to keep Fields and just re-sign Russ. If you think Fields is going to come back willingly to be the backup quarterback, you're just so stupid. He's going to have so many options, I think, of places he could go and be the starter next year, like guaranteed starter. So I just don't see a world where he returns to Pittsburgh to be the backup. So I think the Steelers are going to re-sign Russ and let Fields walk in free agency. The Saints and Derek Carr. It's so weird because people talk about the Saints. They talk like Derek Carr is the problem. He is not the problem whatsoever. He has had a winning record in spite of having one of the worst coordinators in football last year and having next to no weapons this year. He has made Marquez Valdez-Scantling look like Tyreek Hill the last couple of games. Okay, I cannot blame Derek Carr for the Saints' problems these last couple of years. He has been good this year, objectively good. Um, he is in the second year of this contract. Next year, if you wanted to, I think the Saints of these three teams, I think the Saints are the most likely to draft a guy like Jalen Milroe and have him sit for a year behind Derek Carr. I could really see that. But the Saints have massive needs. This defense is bad and old. The offensive line has holes. They have no receiving talent outside of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. They have so many needs that they're going to try to address. They're going to have a top 10 pick. I do not see them drafting a quarterback. It's like Derek Carr has a winning record. What rookie quarterback could you draft that's going to come in and fix their ridiculous salary cap situation? I think the Saints just need to completely start over in terms of an organization, head coach, GM, all that. So I don't think they're drafting a quarterback. They have way bigger problems to address. Next up, we got, listen, if you would have asked me a month ago, 2 months ago, I would have said absolutely the Dolphins need to move on at quarterback. And I still believe that. Honestly, it's kind of sad, it's kind of morbid, but I think I think Tua is essentially going to kill himself if he continues to play in the NFL. Because listen, the guy is 26 years old, and we're having serious like discussions and debates on whether or not he should retire from concussions. Nobody on this earth seriously thinks, and if you do, you're stupid. Nobody on it is not possible that Tua goes the next 10 years having a successful, healthy career without suffering multiple concussions. The over under on concussions per year for Tua is like two. I wholeheartedly think, and I hope that Tua will medically retire before the age of 30. And if that's a guarantee, because honestly, I think that's a guarantee. If not on his own volition from the NFL, like force him to retire. If that's the case, why would you not move on if you're the Dolphins? You have a guy who you know cannot have a healthy career. And it's not to say I like Tua. I think he's a good guy, a good player. In 2022, he led the league in passer rating. In 2023, he led the league in passing yards. The Dolphins had a really good record over those last 2 years when he was in the game. They're a good team when he's out there. He's a good quarterback. I think he earned that contract extension, but he is incapable of playing a healthy career. He has to retire. There is no chance the Dolphins get what they want out of Tua. He's averaging less than 12 games played per season. They have to move on. I think if they're smart, they'll draft Jalen Milroe. If they continue to lose, I think they should draft Cam Ward. I just don't think. Maybe you trade Tua. Maybe that's an option. I do not think the Dolphins will ever succeed with Tua because he just has too much injury history and he should medically retire from the game. Too many concussions. Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Since that Super Bowl run, it's like the Rams have been cursed these last 3 years. They cannot stay healthy. It's just the most injuries in the league over these last 3 years. It's just so ridiculous. And you look at their situation right now. They're 5-5. They're in the race. They could absolutely win the NFC West this year, which sounds crazy, but they could. They're in the race. They're in the mix, but it's like, let's say the Rams go 9-8, and they somehow just because of the NFC West, they win the NFC West. They make the playoffs and they lose in the wild card again, like they did last year. Is that what you want? Now, listen, I understand having respect for Stafford. He won you a ring. If you want to just write it out, then cool. But that shouldn't stop you from trying to draft a guy like Jalen Milroe to sit behind Stafford next year. What I'm saying is for the Rams is they need to make plans. You understand. There is no way Stafford gets re-signed, is what I'm saying. When his contract is up, he's done. Like there's no way he returns, right? So you have to start making preparations. You have Puka Nacua. You have Kyron Williams. You have young players on this defense. Jared Burris, Frisky, uh, Byron Young, Kobe Turner. You have young players on this team. You have to start making preparations for after Stafford. Like the franchise just doesn't end when he retires. Like you have to have another plan. So I think the Rams could really or should really consider, especially if they miss the playoffs. Let's say they go 8-9 and they miss the playoffs and they have a top 15, 14 pick. Absolutely consider drafting a guy like Jalen Milroe. I think that they'd be stupid not to. So the Rams, I think, are very likely or very poised if they don't make the playoffs, make a move on a quarterback. I think they should. The Vikings here, this is a crazy story because it's not about whether or not they draft a quarterback. I really don't think that happens. The question is, do you stick with Sam Darnold after this year because he is playing his butt off, way above any expectations, exceeding all expectations. 8-2 record. Let's just say things keep up on this pace and they go 12-5 and they win. Well, not actually, the Lions probably would win the NFC North. They go 12-5, and let's say they win the wild card against the NFC West champion, right? Let's say let's just say hypothetically here. Let's say the Rams win the NFC West. They play the Vikings, and the Vikings beat the Rams in the wild card, right? How can you get rid of Sam Darnold? How? For JJ McCarthy? Now listen, I've been a JJ McCarthy hater. I didn't think there's a way on planet Earth he should have been a first round pick, but he is not ready. He is not ready to start in the NFL. I say that confidently. And you're telling me you're going to get rid? Listen, NFL teams, they just want a franchise QB. They do not care how they get it. Look at what the Niners did with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. They moved heaven and earth to get Trey Lance. But once they realized that Brock Purdy was better, they could have cared less. They didn't care about what they lost trying to get Trey Lance. They had their franchise QB. It didn't matter at that point. I think we could see a similar situation with the Vikings. Just pay Sam Darnold this offseason. Listen, you don't have to pay Sam Darnold $50 million a year. Are you kidding me? You don't have to pay him 30 or 40 million a year. I think you could give Sam Darnold the Baker Mayfield contract, 3 years, 100 million. That's a discount. That is way below market price for a starting quarterback and a good starting quarterback. He has been a good quarterback so far this season. So I think that would be a great situation for the Vikings. And guess what? Guess what? If Sam Darnold's not that guy, a year from now, he's regressed. He's not playing as well. Well, then you got JJ McCarthy. I don't see the harm in signing Sam Darnold because he has just played so well and he's done so much for you already. I just to let him walk in free agency would be devastatingly bad for the Vikings, in my opinion. So they have a 0% chance to draft a QB, but whether or not they move on from their existing QB is the argument here, and I don't think they should. The Panthers here with Bryce Young. Listen, the record has been terrible. The Panthers as a whole have been a terrible franchise the last 2 years. I cannot blame that all on Bryce Young. They completely whiffed with their second round pick last year in Jonathan Mingo. It was a terrible pick. I called it as a terrible pick. They passed up on Josh Downs. He was already in Carolina. Everybody in their it was a no-brainer. Josh Downs was going to come into the NFL and be an amazing slot receiver. He did that immediately. He is already right now, as it stands, one of the best slot receivers in football. The Panthers desperately need a slot receiver. They passed on the in-state guy right there. I said that immediately. I had him mocked to the Panthers at the top of the second round, the entire draft, and what did they just pass on him? It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. They passed on him. They completely wasted that second round pick. Now listen, some of the guys they drafted this year, they've looked good. Xavier Legette, I like what I've seen so far. Jatavion Sanders, I've seen a lot of good flashes from him. I think they're moving in the right direction. I think Bryce Young, I think he's won like 2 out of his last 3 starts. Okay, I think he's like 2 out of his last 3. So listen, you just need to get if you draft a quarterback with this upcoming top pick, you gain nothing. There is not a single quarterback in this draft that's going to come in and fix the Panthers. They're years away. Their defense sucks. They still have a terrible receiving core. They're just not close. A QB change does nothing. Draft a guy like Tedoroa McMillan. Draft a guy like Travis Hunter who can make a difference and just help Bryce Young. If Bryce Young doesn't work for the Panthers, sell the fucking team. They're cooked. Your only hope at turning this around right now is Bryce Young. You cannot give up on that yet. Next up, these are the three of the teams that I think it's just no brainer. You have to draft a quarterback. Starting off with the Browns, obviously. Listen, the Deshaun Watson situation is just a dumpster fire. It's a mess. The fans booed him off the field. He tore his Achilles. It's over. I do not think Deshaun Watson will ever play a game for the Cleveland Browns again. I don't even think he'll line. I don't even think he'll dress. I don't even think he'll be on the sidelines. He is done. He is cooked. He has played 19 out of what, 57? 19. He's played a third of his possible games in the last 3 years. He has not even been a player for them. Now listen, he is guaranteed like $150 million over the next 2 years. There's nothing you can do about that. You just have to eat that. You gave him the worst contract in NFL history. You got to take it on the chin. Okay, there's nothing you can do. What you could do is draft a Shedeur Sanders, draft a Cam Ward, and just try and figure this shit out. Okay, moving forward. The Browns have handicapped themselves. The Browns have a 0% chance to win the Super Bowl over the next 2 years. I don't think any other NFL team can say that. Even the Panthers. Because who knows? Let's say the Panthers have an amazing offseason, and the next offseason they have an amazing offseason. There's like a 1% chance the Panthers could win the Super Bowl. The Browns, no. You can't win a Super Bowl if you're giving out 40% of your salary cap to somebody who won't play. You can't do it. You can't win with 60% of what everybody else has. You can't do it. So the Browns have crippled themselves. They have a 0% chance to win the Super Bowl. They need to trade guys like Myles Garrett. Um, who do you draft? I don't know. I don't know. The offensive line's horrid. It's I literally just got chills thinking about the Browns' offensive line. It's terrible. They have no run game. The receivers are lacking. It's a terrible situation. Whatever quarterback gets drafted to Cleveland, I'll pray for him. It's a death sentence, but they have to move on. They cannot continue with what they're doing now. It's embarrassing. The Titans. Listen, Will Levis. At first, I was a Will Levis hater. Then I was like, oh, he had one good game against the Falcons. Maybe there's something here. And yeah, it's over. The dream is dead. The Titans fans have given up on Will Levis. He's 4-12 as a starter. Listen, he's been sacked like 55 times, okay, in these 16 games. But the stats are beyond unimpressive. I believe he's turned it over more times. So I think he's turned it over more times than he scored a touchdown. His passer rating is in the toilet. He's just not very good. And listen, this is the thing. It'd be one thing if he was like a 22, like Anthony Rich or Bryce Young. If he was a young quarterback that still had room to grow, it'd be like, okay, the guy's like pushing 26 years old. He's not a young guy. He was supposed to be a guy that came into the league very ready. He wasn't supposed to take all this time to become good. He was supposed to come into the league solid and then get better quickly. That did not happen. That does not happen. The Titans suck. I don't know, man. If you're the Titans and you have a potential to draft a guy like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I don't know how you choose Will Levis over that. I just don't see it. Do not see it whatsoever. Now, if they have like the number 4 pick and you miss out on drafting those QBs, then yeah, I think you keep a guy like Will Levis over Jalen Milrow because I think you could draft a guy like McMillan or Will Campbell. It'd be better value and if it doesn't work out the next season, then you draft a QB. But if you have a chance to draft a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders, you have to move on from Will Levis if you're the Titans. Next, we got the Raiders. The Raiders are an absolute shoe-in guarantee. They're drafting a quarterback. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Milrow, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. The Raiders are drafting one of them. They have like an embarrassing. Oh man, Gardner Minshew has been terrible. 2-6 as a starter. He's thrown more picks than touchdowns. He's averaging a touchdown a game. The Raiders are embarrassing. This shit blew up fast. Devon in the offseason, Devontae was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see how it works. And then like 3 games in, he demanded a trade. I mean, I don't blame him. The Raiders are a joke. They're terrible. The only player worth a damn on this entire offense is the fucking rookie tight end, who people said was a bad pick, by the way. Fucking, oh, I was about to say a restricted word there to describe those people. But listen, the Raiders are in the toilet. They need help. They'll take it wherever they can get it. They need quarterback desperately. The Raiders are drafting a quarterback. Mark my fucking words. Next, we got the Jets here. Listen, the Aaron Rodgers experiment has not worked. Everybody has got fired or demoted. The GM recently just fired. The head coach fired. His friendly offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, demoted. It has not worked. It has crashed and burned. Um, It's over. They're going to bring in a new GM and a new head coach. What are the odds that those new GM and head coach want Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback? It's just 0%. They have to go in a different direction. Aaron Rodgers himself has just played bad. He has the weapons. He has the offensive line. He has not had the defense the entire way, but he's had more than a good enough defense. You cannot go 3-8 as a starter if you're Aaron Rodgers. He has to go. He will be pushed out the door and forced to retire after this season, unless they draft a guy like Jalen Milroe and they make him start next season just so to give Milroe some more time to learn and develop. But yeah, they're done with Aaron Rodgers. They are drafting a quarterback. They have to, unless they're just unable to. They need a change, man. I would rather go out and get Justin Fields than move on with Aaron Rodgers because at least I know Fields has some type of juice left. Aaron Rodgers is fucking cooked. Daniel Jones has already been released. At the time I'm making this video, he got released like yesterday. So let's just go over retroactively and look at what he was as a New York Giant. 24 and 40, sorry, 24 and 44 with one tie as the starter. 69 games, of course. Of course, it was 69 games he started. 85 touchdowns to 97 total turnovers, including fucking 50 fumbles. Turnover machine. He went like a year without throwing a touchdown at home. Um, he got a massive contract for winning one playoff game. And like, hey, he played pretty good. If you remember that playoff game against the Vikings, he played pretty good. He did look pretty good in 2022, I think. But that was it. That was the lone bright spot in a 6-year career. He had one solid year, and that got him a $160 million contract. I don't know if the Giants fire their head coach and their GM. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on that. I don't know if it would make a difference. They have to draft a quarterback. They're probably tanking the rest of the year. Who do they draft? I don't know. Probably Shedeur Sanders, but they pretty much control their destiny in terms of losing out and getting the number one overall pick. They need it, man. They fucking need it, man. That is gonna be it though for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.